I suppose I owe you an explanation. We've all been through a lot the last few years, and there's much more you don't even remember. You've all fought the good fight, but until we set the 0 point free, we'll be facing threats like the last reality, and worse. There will be no escaping it. That's why I need your help to destroy the imagined order. As long as they're exploiting the 0 point, everything is in danger. With your help, we can free ourselves from this place and leave the loop for good. We can all go home.
After all the chaos of Chapter 1 and the absolute roller coaster ride that was Chapter 2, Chapter 3 started things off a bit different. There was no black hole event this time around. Everything we knew about Fortnite was about to be flipped upside down. This time, literally. Old POIs returned and new ones would make their debut, such as the Sanctuary, Sleepy Sound, and even a POI that was considered the new Tilted Towers, the Daily Bugle. Coincidentally, this POI was located within the remains of the volcano from Chapter 1, so if you ever found that spot slightly familiar, that's probably why. Fortnite Chapter 3 began by giving us one of the best collabs with the new Spider-Man theme. Not only did we get some sick skins, but for a while Fortnite became one of the best Spider-Man games in general, especially when compared to a certain Spider-Man related DLC that was coming out at that time. A new mechanic made its debut during this season, sliding, which of course let you do brand new glitches and exploits where players tried to get in each other's boxes Indiana Jones style. However, while sliding was new and players figured out how to utilize it properly, it wasn't as game-breaking as it seemed. This was far from the start of what some players would call stagnation, but considering this was a major new mechanic to the movement system, it was interesting to see it simply become part of the normal meta without much fuss. Unlike swimming, which was groundbreaking at the time. This season though, the spotlight was on the items and environments. On the top of these mechanics, the island itself had some brand new features. We received tall redwood trees that could be knocked down to deal massive damage. In fact, players started using these to get across the map quickly. That wasn't the only glitch or exploit on the map, since players discovered how to make the monument at the Sanctuary glitch out by hitting it with a pair of spare tires. Players also made quick work of the foundation by letting gravity do all the work in one of the cheesiest one-hit kill methods. Their reward? A mythic MK7. However, it was this next part that really made it OP across multiple matches. We also got tents which were game-breaking for casual games. Players began stashing away their best items into the tents and then using them during the next match to absolutely wipe the competition. With a brand new chapter, Epic added a new way to flex your victory crown and emote. This was a way to let your opponent know, hey, your win count is cool and all, but check mine out. Chapter 3 was so fresh it even brought out old pros and YouTubers out of hiding, including Ninja. It even brought back C-Day, who took one look around and quickly left the scene once more, but not before leaving behind some ominous words.
Doing something, well, like literally the same thing for that long, it gets repetitive and it loses that thing that made it fun in the beginning.
Why was this ominous? We'll check it out later, but first, how about some fun? Chapter 3 Season 1 also teased a brand new creature to the island during the reveal, and as the season began to progress, the snow would melt away, awakening them from a long hibernation. Colombos beat all the odds. Somehow, this giant colorful monster became one of the most iconic and beloved creatures to ever get added into Fortnite. It wasn't long before Colombo Madness hit, and every channel began to put Colombo in their thumbnails. From angry Colombos to baby Colombos, even Colombos crying. Every season had their own Colombo. In fact, this trend would continue whenever a channel needed views. Colombos weren't the only fan favorite things in the snow. At long last, Tilted Towers made a triumphant return and and perhaps this time it wouldn't be absolutely demolished. The pump shotgun was an iconic part of Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. However, with Chapter 3, Epic decided to part ways with one of its OG weapons in favor of trying something new. Instead, what we got was the striker pump. In fact, most of the weaponry we got this season were replacements for the old weaponry, including the Scar, which was another fan favorite weapon. So, were the replacements any good? Oh boy.
Oh, wow.
What that? Yo!
The MK7 AR was one of the most unique weapons to date. Ever wonder what Fortnite would be like in first person? The MK7 gave players a sneak peek whenever they held the down sights. It also turned out to be one of the most broken ARs in history, with its ability to shred through builds and absolutely beam opponents with little to no effort or kickback. The island also featured brand new weather patterns such as tornadoes and even lightning storms, though the latter was only present briefly, so you might not even remember it being in the game that long. This season also gave us one of the best winter fests, especially since the season started off with the island completely covered in snow. Quad crashers came back and Fortnite players had a fun reunion with these vehicles. If you thought Smash had great newcomers, check this out. The Matrix, Uncharted, Boba Fett, you name it. At this point, if it exists, it will probably make it into Fortnite. Chapter 3 had a great start, and with Season 2, it would only get even better. Wanna rank up fast? Wanna build your pro gamer career? Then click on the link below and visit ProGuides.com. For only $7.99 a month, you can learn from the best and play like them too, with access to over 100 hours of content to help you go pro in Fortnite and more. Things were about to go down. Season 2 was probably one of the best of Chapter 3. Not that there were many seasons to compare it to, but it was action-packed, it was story-relevant, and it introduced a game mode many players had been hoping for. During the initial start of Season 2, the IO finally made their way up to the surface and began their invasion. With agents such as Sloan, Prowler, and Gunnar on their side, the Loopers were in for a fight. However, their most deadly form of attack was creating a barrier that prevented players from building. What? Fortnite without builds?
Building has been wiped out?
How am I supposed to survive no building?
Oh my god. When someone's in the tank, you can't kill him.
Enter zero build lobbies. Finally, there was a mode for players who hated dealing with the sweats of Battle Royale. When it first popped up, it drew attention far and wide, causing even more players to come back to explore what was added. This was also the introduction of Overshield, a no-build mode exclusive mechanic that slowly refilled and gave you some extra shields. Meanwhile, players were discovering a brand new way to move. For the longest time, we were only allowed to run at a fixed speed, but a brand new stamina bar allowed us to dash forwards with tactical sprinting. On top of that, players could now mantle over obstacles to get around the fact that you couldn't build. These mechanics actually did push the boundaries of competitive play, allowing for more dynamic movement. Not only that, but it allowed players to be stealthier than ever before, since they no longer needed to build or deploy utilities if they wanted to reach rooftops. Season 2 of Fortnite included more Marvel characters, including Doctor Strange and Prowler. It also gave us an updated version of Tsuki known as Tsuki 2.0. Meanwhile, in the shop, even more collabs were being unveiled, including a new icon series set for Ali A, Scarlet Witch, Moon Knight, and even Obi-Wan. A brand new POI was introduced in the form of Covert Cavern, and it instantly became a hot landing spot. Players loved that it was inside a cave, there were plenty of fishing spots, and the POI could get absolutely stacked, but still have enough space for players to loot without getting creamed automatically. Meanwhile, Colombos were vaulted, prompting many players to ask where they went. This is also the season with the most crying Colombos in the thumbnails. Fortnite players were just imagining the worst case scenario, but they held out hopes that one day their beloved creatures would return. In fact, many other players also speculated that the IO was hard at work reviving the Devourer from Chapter 1. Yet, to this day, the vault remains unopened.
They shot this tank, and I can repair the tank with the torch back up to full health.
While players would have to wait for combos again, Epic added in a new vehicle in the form of tanks. These bad boys were capable of driving through buildings like a knife through butter. In fact, in this season, most of the vehicles were capable of doing this, including normal ones with the addition of a cowcatcher mod. So it was common to make your way to a POI only to discover some jokester that spent the whole match mowing down tilted towers. However, the most iconic vehicle of the season had to be the battle bus, which was finally made usable and it became packed with mounted weapons for your squad. Speaking of weapons, the Striker Burst Rifle became a staple, adding to the collection of overpowered ARs in the game. The Combat SMG also ushered in a new era of the spray meta.
Coming in on me, coming in on me. Hey, look at me.
Hold on. I have a heal. Back. Right behind, I think.
So yeah, the Combat SMG was an absolute monster. However, if you thought this weapon was OP, then you're in for a surprise later. But for now, let's talk blimps. Blimps took over the skies, and as the season progressed, they would fall one by one as the Seven and the Loopers were able to take back the island from the IO. However, this wasn't the only trick up their sleeves. Eventually, everything culminated with the IO creating a new POI near Loot Lake. This was called the Collider, and if it became fully operational, it would spell doom for the Loopers. Luckily, the Seven had their own countermeasures for this, and it would be a blast from the past. As the Collider prepared for its doomsday scenario, everyone's lobby changed as we watched the mech from Chapter 1 get rebuilt and a new paint job. Then, during the live event, it was up to us to pilot it and take down the IO for good. However, just as the tide was turning against us, the true hero of the Fortnite storyline showed up.
It's worth a shot. Power to emergency recovery system.
They were saved by Peely, who had finally learned to drive. So you know all those times we've said Peely was the worst skin or the worst pay-to-lose skin? Scratch that. Peely takes all 10 places in the top 10 best Fortnite skins. If you don't have Peely in your locker, you're not a true fan. Thanks to his help, the Loopers were able to destroy the oncoming IO invasion, and we even got a small taste of what's coming next season. Ultimately, Sloan was defeated and killed off. Or was she? So where to next? Resistance was pretty much the finale to the conflict that started in Chapter 2. The IO was defeated, the cubes were long gone, and the 0 point was safe once more. So what could the next season top this? Chapter 3 Season 3 was all about the vibes, and the title pretty much said everything you needed to know about the premise. For now. The war was over and the Loopers could rest up and celebrate their victory at the Rave Cave and the Reality Tree. A new mushroom biome was introduced, giving us healing shrooms and even OG Easter eggs such as the big chair and even the remnants of Dusty Depot. In fact, this was a pretty chill summer season, and despite how hyped up Darth Vader was, some players were a bit disappointed with the fact that it wasn't a full-on Star Wars season. However, he did go on to become one of the craziest boss fights ever, with the ability to jump straight towards you or chokehold you. It really made you hyped to reach level 100 so you can use this skin. Oh boy, I can't wait to use this lightsaber as a pickaxe. What? Luckily, there were other more faithful collabs such as the Indiana Jones, which even came with a temple POI. Among the new collabs were John Cena, Among Us, Destiny, and a little collab we'll talk about later. But before we get to that action, let's spend 20 episodes screaming. We also got a chance to relive the days of the Spider-Man swing from flip through the grappler glove. Though, this version pales in comparison to the originals from Season 1. Ripsaw launchers, prime shotguns, and DMRs sent the community in different directions. In fact, There's a debate on which shotgun would be the true successor to the pump. However, everyone could agree the Charge SMGs became the most controversial addition to the Chapter 3 lineup, but not for the reasons you might think. Charge SMGs were the bane of many players' existence. Unlike many of the other build shredders in the past, this weapon could be charged before firing. So much like the charged shotgun, you can blast opponents into oblivion as long as you took a few moments to prep. However, the counter argument could be made that it was actually quite useless during the more advanced gameplay. Noobs loved it, pros hated it. It sucked, but was amazing at the same time. However, it did find a home in Zero build where you could basically just spam it by camping in the corner. Let us know in the comment section, was it really that bad? Meanwhile, Ballers were back, though they were a bit nerfed from their introduction. This time they were electric with no way to be charged. They could be found in what used to be Command Cavern, but this time, the POI was converted into Party Central, the roller coaster, or its official name, the Rave Cave. As for the rest of the island, it was looking pretty chill. The reality tree sprouted and everything was festive, with many of the early vibe and missions being preparation for a celebration party. However, there was someone watching from afar, and as the season progressed, we would see the reality tree changing different POIs. One of the biggest and more permanent changes was the Daily Bugle, which was transformed into Lazy Lagoon. By now, many pros began to quit or had already quit Fortnite, such as Matzo, Saf, even Mongrel. However, not everything was doom and gloom. Benji Fishy retired with a dream of taking on Valorant, and so far has found success due to his excellent mechanical skills. After all, if someone can master the mechanics of muscle memory required to build and edit, they can definitely transfer that same grind mentality to other games and come out on top. Still though, it was sad to see some of Fortnite's legends move on. Animals such as wolves and boars could now be tamed and used to ride around the map. Most importantly, you can use this even when building, which resulted in a pretty useful glitch. Who said getting into the temple was difficult? During Season 3, Epic finally brought back Klombo. This time, he got a massive upgrade. Instead of hibernating beneath the snow again, this Klombo was... Yup. Klombo was officially dead. YouTube channels everywhere capitalized on his death. Vibin had mixed reactions, with some claiming it was one of the best summer seasons, while others said that there was not much going on. The community became split in different directions, and if you noticed that about this chapter, then it was just part of a problem that had been growing for a while. People had different ideas on what Fortnite should be doing next. Casual players loved the exploits and wanted to keep the game fresh. For the most part, they got what they wanted, but sweaty players always had a way of turning a casual match into FNCS. Meanwhile, competitive players just weren't seeing that many changes to the meta. Aside from a new POI every now and then, many items that were introduced in updates would end up vaulted, resulting in a pretty static experience for comp players. Meanwhile, the introduction of no builds mode presented its own issues. No build players wanted their own loot pool to differentiate themselves from the main game, but also bring back some of the older loot for the sake of variety. It seems the community wanted all different things. If only there was a place everyone could coexist. Now that we're done with the filler arc, let's talk about the best collab of the season. Towards the end of the season, Epic unveiled their Dragon Ball Z collaboration, which once again shook the very foundation of what could and couldn't become a possible collab in the future. Along with Goku and his friends, Epic also added some in-game items such as the Flying Nimbus and the Kamehameha Wave, which absolutely wrecked the competition.
Later, bro.
No!
It also became a funny joke of seeing which YouTubers could say the name correctly.
And the Kamehameha right here. I have the Kamehameha using the Kamehameha Mythic.
So we all know the Kamehameha is overpowered.
Yes, Vibin was a pretty good summer season, but there were a few disappointments. For starters, there was a whole stage setup but no one to perform. We also had skate parks on the water but no skateboards. If anything, perhaps expectations were too high after Resistance. As the season came to a close, the 7 began disappearing and things began to get more ominous. There wasn't even a live event this time to herald in the new season. However, we did get a pretty neat 3D display in Times Square, New York. The age of Chrome has begun as the 7 are corrupted one by one. Meanwhile, we got another face reveal for the 7. The paradigm was officially Brie Larson. This season saw some pretty interesting changes, but was it enough to save Fortnite? New Chrome items allowed players to transform into blobs, which allowed for faster travel, no fall damage, and the ability to patch up anything with a health bar. Chrome weapons were a great new weapon category, getting stronger the more damage you dealt, and the Herald became one of the more annoying bosses in the game due to her shield ability. The goo gun was an interesting experiment, which is either really fun to use or really annoying to have used on you. But behold, the charge SMG was vaulted, and just for fun, players managed to get the grappler glove back. With Season 3 barely beginning, already players were trying to decipher leaks for the next season. One giant leak was of flying animals. While this hasn't come to pass yet, this ushered in a new era of Klombo saga. Klombo may have been absent for most of the chapter, but on YouTube, news of a new flying creature prompted the community to portray flying Klombos. Meanwhile, the island itself was slowly turning chrome as many POIs started getting evacuated into the sky. Some locations such as the Sanctuary, Lazy Lagoon, and Shimmering Shrines were already consumed by the time the season began. Meanwhile, locations such as No Sweat Insurance and the pirate ship took the skies, and soon even more POIs were lifted to safety. The reality tree became shriveled, signifying the end. Fortnitemares returned, however it was looking pretty lackluster compared to previous years, including one very mediocre mythic. However, it did bring 2 fan-made skins into the game. It also brought in Ash from the Evil Dead and other horror icons such as Summer and Mr. Meeseeks from Rick and Morty. The Halloween POI was also really good, Grim Grimbles, which made the community rise from the dead in hopes of a Stranger Things collabs and the return of some long missing skins. However, instead we got the Inquisitor, which was cool enough. Maybe? Yeah, Fortnitemares was considered a disaster. However, not everything was doom and gloom here either. Because of the FNCS Invitational, Epic would be having an in-person tournament. Why was this such a big deal? Well, that's a whole different story for another day. Chapter 3 is hot right now, but we'll rewind back to that era soon. Speaking of chapters, in a surprise twist, it was announced that Epic would be ending Chapter 3 early, making it the shortest chapter in Fortnite history. So where do we go from here? Will first-person Fortnite be the next big step towards regaining an audience? What about Creative 2.0? Will it be the mode that saves Fortnite, or will it turn Battle Royale into Save the World? There's no telling what the future brings, but it seems like the community is fractured. However, perhaps Chapter 4 will be the glue that brings everyone back together, right? Before we reach the end of this story, don't forget to click on the link below to visit ProGuides.com and find out how you can take an extra 10% off coaching opportunities.
ProGuides, pay like the pros.
Well, the Fortnite community was about to find out as the Herald consumed what remained of the island as the 0 point exploded. Luckily, small bits of the island managed to survive. With the help of some NPCs and your fellow player, we managed to collect enough fragments to slowly heal the island. There were flashbacks, iconic characters, and even some quests to help us along the way. Eventually, a new island was formed by bringing in the fragments from other universes. We saw Doomslayer holding a scar, Hulk, and even Mr. Beast. There's a ton of hints on what's coming next season. So what else is there to say? It's a brand new chapter in the history of Fortnite. It's time to stop rewinding and move forwards.